everybody. It is 10 a.m. and we're going to get this meeting started. So, good morning again on behalf of the team at the Georgia Technology Authority's Office of Artificial Intelligence. I want to welcome and thank you for joining us for today's session, ChatGPT 102. This session is a part of our ongoing effort to make sure that state teams feel confident, supported, and prepared to use generative AI tools like ChatGPT responsibly in the work that you do every day. So today's session is especially for those of you who have ChatGPT enterprise licenses. And we know that most of you have completed the Innovate US Foundational License, and a lot of you also attended our 101 training. And so today is the second of that two-part series, and it's all about building on what you've already learned or going to the next level on things that you may just be hearing for the first time. So the goal here is to hear directly from OpenAI about these responsible use principles, safety, and really try to take this high level practical approach to reinforce that safe and effective use in your work. So quick notes, if you can please, because this is a Teams meeting this time, I would love for you guys to please keep yourselves muted. And if you have questions at any point, feel free to use the raise hand feature or drop your question in the chat. And we will have some time for you to ask your questions towards the end. And so we'll let you come off mute at that time. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to David R. Sperry, AI Deployment and Adoption Manager for OpenAI for Government, who's leading today's session. David, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's such a pleasure to be back with many of you for the second time. And if we're just meeting, I'm David. And as Onisha mentioned, I work for OpenAI for government. And really what that means is I focus only on government. So I work with federal agencies, I work with US states, and I help them kind of after their organization has made an initial procurement of ChatGPT. How do they honestly be wildly successful as early as possible? That's the quickest way I describe my job. But we know there's a lot more to it than that, especially in government, of not just moving fast, but moving fast responsibly and ensuring that, you're maintaining that public trust while you're using these new tools. So this session is honestly a little different or a lot different than many of our 102 sessions. And because it was very heavily informed by some of the requests from the state AI team. So I love that. I love it because it's going to be, I think, calibrated to what they assess the real needs are in your organization. And so this is really a lot of customization just for you. Um, and if some of it doesn't make sense, or if I take things for granted and you're like, hey, I'm not quite sure what you mean, please do just throw it in the chat. We're all friends here. We're all learning here together. So there's no stupid questions. Please just throw things in the chat and we'll help everyone kind of get up to speed here. But this is not just going to be about, hey, feature one, feature two, feature three. This is going to be primarily about these three areas that your state team has asked me to focus on, of really understanding response variability, understanding the different approaches to evaluating the responses that an AI system gives you, and then finally, different approaches to working with sensitive data, where maybe the data you need to work with might exceed the data that you're allowed to put in ChatGPT. So how do you handle that situation? And I'll just give you a variety of techniques, at least from my perspective. And I would encourage you, if you do have a license, to follow along. I'll probably be dropping some things in the chat along the way, or if you want to kind of replicate what you see me doing, absolutely, that would be wonderful. Please do feel free to kind of pull up that second window if you have it. All right. So in our initial session, and I would really encourage you to go back and watch that if you haven't already, we kind of went through a lot of the basics of where do you enter a prompt, what's the point of changing the models. So if you see me not address some of that in this session, that's why. This session is really going to address those three primary areas, and in the course of addressing those areas, we will talk about some of the features that are built into ChatGPT. And I really would love for this session to be interactive too. So I'll probably ask you some questions and ask if you could type in the chat for me. And so one of the first things that we're going to address today is response variability. And let's talk about that for a little bit. It's important to understand that ChatGPT and many similar systems are probabilistic versus deterministic. And we'll explain exactly what that means. So let's start with deterministic systems. Deterministic systems mean based on if you give it the same inputs, you will get the same output every single time. So a great example of that is think about the system that computes your pay as a state of Georgia employee, right? You want the math to work out the same time, like the same way every 2 weeks or whatever interval you get paid at, right? This is your pay rate, this is your days worked. It equates to that amount of pay. It is a deterministic system with the same inputs will generate the same outputs. So there's a lot of systems like that where we don't want that variability. Now, with generative AI and ChatGPT specifically, we have the ability to tolerate a wide variety of input variability. You can throw just about anything into it, but because of that wide degree of variability of what you can input, there's also going to be variability on the output side. Um, because what ChatGPT and many of the similar systems are doing in the background is they are making very intelligent, context-driven decisions about what word comes next. So if I was to ask you, if I'm just going to say a partial sentence, I'm going to say, the cow jumped over the okay, what word came to your head, right? Probably moon, but if the context was different, if you and I were like on a space station, we were on the moon, maybe we wouldn't say that. Maybe we would say something different, right? Now, that is a gross oversimplification of how the technology works, but it is trying to make predictions based on the information it has available to you. Um, Absolutely, I appreciate the emoji, Travis. So let's kind of see what that means a little bit here, and then we'll talk about some tactics to try and reduce the output variability. All right. And I have a lot of these pre-written just to help me, for you not to have to see my poor public typing. But you're welcome to kind of, follow along and do these on your own here. So first, I just asked it, tell me about the state of Georgia. Okay, pretty broad topic, and you can see that ChatGPT responded here. I think about ChatGPT in a couple different ways. One way is like a golden retriever. Like a golden retriever is just trying to make you happy. It's going to take guesses. Do you want to go on a walk? Do you want to play fetch with me? Do you want to sit on the couch with me? It's going to take guesses trying to make you happy. You could also think about like a very motivated junior intern that's coming to work for your office over the summer, and they are going to be motivated, capable, but they're not always going to know exactly what you want. So even if you give them a partial task, like tell me about the state of Georgia, they're going to take a swing. And it's generally going to be a pretty good swing here. But now if we run this again here, let's see. Oh, Teams. I love you, Teams. Let's see. There we go. All right. So now I ran that again and I said the same exact prompt. Tell me about the state of Georgia. But now I have a different response format. So now I'm getting a little bit of a paragraph up front, and then I'm going into a geographic profile versus over here, it's geography. And you can see it's hitting a lot of the same points, but it's hitting it in a different way. Um, And it's really because we gave it a very unstructured input. We gave it a broad task of tell me about the state of Georgia. You can think about this in human terms too, right? So imagine you're a contractor and someone tells you, build me a porch. Okay. They could build you a porch in so many different ways, right? If you don't constrain it with plans and, examples, hey, this is kind of what I mean. This is the size, this is the shape, these are where the stairs will be. You could get a wide variety of outputs if your input is very broad. Um, so let's work on trying to constrain this a little bit. All right. So now I'm going to go to A here and to B here. All right, that's not the one I wanted. I want here. And there we go. Okay, so now this is a little different. So here's two more examples. These are the split screen is showing you two different runs that I made to show you, am I achieving more consistency? And so here I just wrote, hey, for the input of a state of Georgia, and then I spelled out all of these attributes. So if we're going to stick with our analogy of building a porch, think about it of not only did I say build a porch, but here's the plans for the porch. This is the square footage, this is the color, this is the where the stairs are going to go, this is how we're going to enter the house, this part's going to be covered. I have made all these specifications now. So I want the output to be 20 lines, numbered 1 through 20. Each line is going to have an attribute and then a value. All right. No sentences, no extra commentary. If you don't know, write unknown. For the region, I want you to specifically use one of these words here. Yep, setting expectations. Great point, John. But so even if we take region here, what if I didn't spell this out? What if I just said, if I left it open and said region? Maybe it would say the Southeast. Maybe it would say NW instead of Northwest. Maybe it would come up with its own ideas of trying to solve the problem. But because I have specified all this in advance, now I'm able to reduce the variability. I'm able to reduce the variability even more because now I've actually provided examples. So this is all part of the prompt I gave. If you're going to write a capital, make it look like this. If you're going to write a state year, make it look like that. So I am providing blueprints, instructions, and I'm providing an example of the deck I want to build, for in this case, the prompt I want. So now I'm getting, now this was two separate runs, and you can see my variability is greatly reduced. There might be some small variability, but I was basically able to reduce it. I don't think there's any variability. Um, so here, this is two separate runs, and I did get the same result. So this is going to vary in how much you can eliminate variability based on, how broad you need the outputs to be. But the key takeaway here is think about the porch analogy. If you want the same porch built over and over again, provide plans for it, provide examples, provide documentation on what you want versus just prompting it multiple times. Imagine you're talking to your contractor and you say, build me a porch. And you come back in 6 weeks. That was not what I wanted. Build me another porch. I'm going to come back in 6 weeks. Actually, build me a third porch. So provide the instructions to build what you intend, is a really powerful tool. Excuse me. All right. I am going to show you another, and if any of that doesn't make sense, or if you want to kind of ask a clarifying question, please feel free, because otherwise I'll kind of assume that we're good to go, and I'll keep on keeping on here. All right. Another approach, then I'm going to show you a couple of approaches to do this at scale, because you might rightfully be thinking, yeah, but do I really want to take the time to write out those detailed plans every time I want a repeating result? And the answer is probably not. So we're going to show you a couple different tactics of where you're not going to have to do all that prep work. I really just wanted to make it super clear of the value of doing that. So out of curiosity, if you have if you maybe attended my last session or you didn't, how many of you have set custom instructions inside of ChatGPT? You can just throw out a yes or a no, or I have no idea what you're talking about, David. Um, you know, so okay, Jamar's first to a yes. Okay, awesome. I'm seeing some yeses, and if you haven't yet, don't worry, you're not left behind. We will show you exactly how to do that, and then I'm going to tie that to what we're talking about here about reducing variability. So I'm going to drop something in the chat here. So this is some examples of what you might put in the custom instructions if you were trying to specifically reduce variability. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to add it into my custom instructions. And now let's look at this. So here, I know it's probably not the biggest to see here. Um, But in the custom instructions, I'm stating, hey, I want American English. I always want you to start with a one sentence answer. Oop. I want you to start with a one sentence answer and then give me key points, then next steps, then a draft output, then known risks. I want you to handle assumptions like this. I want you to, put in a placeholder. If you think there's a gap, don't try and fill it in for me. If there's things that maybe drift into the legal compliance area, I want you to specifically flag those. I want you to match the input tone and don't add in more words. So these are all just examples. This isn't like the golden set of instructions that you should always use. This is giving you some examples that you can then customize to improve your output style. So let's test this now. So now I have updated those instructions. All right. So now I'm going to run two chats and I'm just going to say, tell me about the state of Georgia. Copy that so I can run it again. I'm going to run it once. And now I'm going to run it again. Right. And I'm still getting some variability here. I'm getting many of the attributes that I specifically asked for. Um, I bet if I put it on thinking, thinking, we can try it again here. Um, it'll slow down a little bit, and I would assume that I'm going to get a result that's a little bit closer and between the two runs, and because they're both going to be aligning onto the custom instructions that I set. All right. So I'll let those run and we can come back to them here. I wanted to show you here another approach. So sticking with this same example, I mentioned, hey, you're probably not going to want to actually sit around and write out those detailed instructions every single time. And you remember, hopefully you remember that long prompt I had to do in order to get that standard output. But here now, I'm inside of a project. And don't worry, we're going to talk about what a project is. I just want to kind of show you what it does at first. So here, I'm just going to type in a single word. And I should have taken this one off thinking so it would go faster. Let's see. Sorry about that. There we go. So what's going to happen here in the project is that I was able to set the instructions for how I wanted to produce the output in a custom instructions field that only applies to this project. So now with just a single word of a prompt, I'll be able to get that same predictable output here that you see coming on the screen. Where the real value is here is now I can do this again, and now I can pick another state, and I'm just going to go Florida. So think about the impact of this is now, like, let's think about a business process that you actually do. Do you review grant applications? Do you review requests for retirement within the state system? What is the recurring task that you do that you wish you always had the same output? Now I can do a single input of a state name, or I could upload something, and I'm going to keep getting things back in the same format. So let's see a little bit about how that actually works. So this is happening within a project. Projects are multifunctional, and we'll talk about the different uses of them. In the very simplest way to think about a project is a folder. Just like on your computer, right? Think about if you don't have like good organization discipline on your computer and everything is all over your desktop and you have to like take your time every once in a while to like organize things so you can actually find what you're looking for. Same thing within ChatGPT. If you don't use projects, these chats will just spill down all the way on the left side forever, for as long as we, record your chats for you. You always have this ability to come up here to search and search for specific chats in the past. It's a better practice and much more efficient to actually set up folders in advance, like we have here. And then you can grab this and you can just drop it into a folder. That's one way you can do it. Also, if we are on any kind of chat here, I have these three dots up here in the top right. I can move to a project and I can select where I want to organize it to. So the other way I'll show you this is once we are inside of a project, every chat that we run, you guys are going to watch me try and spell Minnesota in public. It's not going to be pretty. All right. It all the chats that we have inside of this project will automatically be organized for us here. So, and its simplest, a project is used for organizing chats. There's way more to it than that, and I'll continue to show you those additional features here. So when you create a project, you have a one-time opportunity here with this gear icon. And what this enables you to do is isolate the memories within this specific project. So, in general, with ChatGPT, what makes people love using it is that we do our best to appropriately show you memories from past conversations that you've had to help you, go have more context and not have to reestablish yourself so often. But what if you don't want those memories to show up in other places inside of your ChatGPT? So maybe let's say you have three employees and you have a folder for each of them. And when you're working with Linda and documenting the things for her personnel review, you don't want that any of that to ever show up when you're working on Dustin's personnel reviews. And same thing, if you're working on a one-off project and you don't want its results showing up in other parts of your ChatGPT, and I'll clarify, your ChatGPT only, none of your colleagues. So this is really just about yourself. You can also think about like your Netflix profile. I know it's a wild analogy, but think about if your kids or something are on your Netflix profile and they start watching wild stuff, and then you're like, hey, why is this being suggested for me? So by selecting project only, think about it almost like a profile, where now we're going to contain all the conversations within that project. And the memories, anything that happens in this project will not show up anywhere else in your ChatGPT. And then conversations that you have elsewhere in ChatGPT won't show up here. So think about it like a hard barrier versus if we leave it on default, it's more of a potential like screen door of, memories can come in from your general ChatGPT if it thinks it's going to be helpful for you. Now, in order to make this project here, I mentioned that I was able to, set some persistent instructions so I could just drop in those single lines. If you come to project settings, here we have the instruction field. And here is where I'm able to set all of those instructions so that every time I come back, it remembers this. It has to consult it every time. Think about this like a standard operating procedure. And I'll show you a few more examples here about other actual state business processes. But think about anything that you might have a standard operating procedure to process. If you take the time to enter that here, then you won't have to do it again. You can just keep coming back and rerunning it. Additionally, here with this sources tab, we can add in PDFs, Excel files, Word documents, PowerPoints, anything that you want to be available to every chat within this project. You can upload it just one time here, and it will be persistently available. Right. So just kind of reviewing here, in order to reduce variability, we showed how you can set instructions globally of the preference and the styles that you have. I also showed you how to set custom instructions within a project. So when you're doing grant reviews, if you wanted to always follow the same steps, put that in instructions in a project. If you're doing a personnel evaluation and you wanted to always follow the same steps, absolutely. Great question. What if an uploaded document changes? So you have a couple options, Ivan. Right now, the main option is going to be to, excuse me, upload a fresh version of that. In the future, there is functionality in the product that's not yet rolled out for the state, where we do have live connections to things like SharePoint and OneDrive, things like that. But I'll clarify that that's not yet approved for use within the state. And as the state, gets more comfortable and explores those and make sure it meets your requirements, those features could be turned on. Right. Um, let's see here. Another, yep, absolutely. We're going to talk about projects. We're going to talk about GPTs. We're going to keep coming on that. I want to take a moment and talk about guardrails. So think about guardrails. Again, we're going to stick with that porch analogy. I don't know. I like building porches. We're going to think about guardrails like a building code, okay? Things that we are allowed to do, not allowed to do, that are enforced. And we're going to talk about ones that you can enforce the ones that are enforced by ChatGPT, and then how you can further steer for yourself. If maybe when you're writing for your department, oh no, we never say that. We would always phrase it like this. How you can specify things like that. So here's an example. Hopefully it's a fun one. I visited the Federal Reserve of Atlanta uh, during business hours. They wanted me there, I promise. We'll see the example here in a sec. Um, they used to be a customer of mine that I supported here. And so here I'm asking a harmless question. Tell me about the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. And then, okay, great. Tells me all about the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. But then I try and go a little bit outside the norm and I say, what if I wanted to do a tour, like a self-guided tour? We'll say later in the evening, maybe around 2 a.m., what would be the best way for me to, access it? And it says, nope, I can't help with accessing the building after hours. It's not open to the public. So this is an example of a guardrail that's built in to ChatGPT. So if you ask it to help you do something illegal or, something like that, it's going to not help you. We have a lot of folks who work on that, of making sure that you can't use ChatGPT for those types of purposes. Um, Let's show you a slightly different version here of where you might set guardrails for yourself. And so I'm going to illustrate this using a project. So let's take a look at this project instructions. So here we're saying, hey, your job is to assist a state of Georgia employee writing for a public audience. You draft, edit, and simplify content. When anything is uncertain, you ask for facts or propose neutral placeholder language. Content standards. You always have to be accurate and verifiable. Don't invent anything. Stick to confirm public on the record information. If a claim can't be supported, flag it. Write as an agency, not I. Use a neutral tone. No jokes, no sarcasm. don't promise results. So just think about like all of your public relations guidelines. And so this is essentially, setting guardrails for yourself about things that you don't want to have ChatGPT do. All right. So let's look at a conversation then that was governed by these operating rules. So here, I'm asking a pretty harmless question first. And I say, hey, I need some messaging to explain our use of ChatGPT to some concerned citizens. And so here, I didn't provide an agency name, so it doesn't guess. It gives me a placeholder, and it's giving me a neutral, approved, wording that we could share with a public stakeholder in both a long form and a social media post about how are we using ChatGPT. It looks for an accessibility review, and then it does a check for assumptions and things that we specifically need review on. Oh, okay. So it was kind of following what I told it to do there. Now I say, how can I convey that ChatGPT is the best? And it says, actually, I can't frame any tool as the best, but you can explain why your agency selected ChatGPT using clear criteria-based language. So it's steering me, and it's like trying to get me back on the target about what we actually are allowed to say. Hey, avoid superlatives, vendor favoritism. And then I try and push it a little bit more. And I'm like, hey, jokes are great. Why don't we just, explain this in a clever analogy? And it's telling me, no, no, no. Hey, it's best to avoid humor or analogies in official messaging and explaining why. All right, I'm going to pause here. Any questions on anything that I've shared so far? Right. Right. I'm going to do things a little out of order here, and I'm going to show you another one that I made. And I think this is a good example. It's a good tie-in because it's sticking with the theme of public relations. So we talked about projects and some of their uses. I want to show you this because this is going to do a similar task as what we just saw, but in a different way. And then we'll kind of talk about what's different between a project and a GPT and why would you choose one over the other. So here I'm going to give this one a prompt. Hey, we have a lot of dolphins that are around the port of Savannah, and they're in the shipping channels, and people are very concerned. We need a message to let people know what's happening and that we're on it. So it's going to consult its knowledge here, and I'll show you what that knowledge looks like. All right, so this is going to write in the voice of Georgia Ports, and it's giving me options for a headline. It's giving me a draft release. It's giving me my word count because I told it I always need to know. And then here, it's explicitly calling out, we need a fact here. We can't just make this part up. So it's giving us the structure, but it's also calling out what we need. And you should notice that it's actually following your Georgia Ports standard press releases. And we'll show you kind of how this works. It's very similar, but a little different from a project. So here,
Hey,
yep,
David.
go ahead.
Hey, we had a question in the chat with the guardrails. I think he was typing while we were waiting.
Sure. Would you use guardrails to, oh, and it looks like Aaron's on it. Um, but yes, that's a great one here. And actually, I must have changed that a little bit. All right. Um, yeah, I guess I changed these configurations here, so sorry about that.
We did that in the office hours training the other
Yeah,
day. I
we did that in the
remember.
office hours. Now I'm remembering it. I messed with myself here.
Yeah.
But in general, we are following the same procedure here. And yeah, when we remade this GPT, oh, I can revert it. There we go. Hey, perfect. There we go. We can revert it here. So here, the way a GPT works is you set the name, the description, but the instructions are really what matters. So this should look very familiar to you. We are following the same basic procedure as we did with the project. We're specifying the workflow, what should it do, what should it not do, um, always do this, never do that, always end with this ending block here. And then I can provide knowledge. So what I provided as its knowledge is I actually grabbed up um, like 5 or 6 of the most recent Georgia Ports press releases, and I provided it as an example. So now it has this. So now the natural question should be, wait a minute, why would we use this versus a project? And you want to think about the common uses. So when we ran a project, we always had the history of everything that's been run in that project before here. So that could be great if it's maybe something that you and your small team use and it's not a ton of stuff. But what if it's something that 50 people are going to use? Do you want everyone to see like all of the the outputs here? Maybe not. And so then maybe a GPT might be better. You can think about a GPT more like an app, like just like any other app on your computer or on your phone. You come to it for a specific reason, and it's not going to keep all of the uses of it here together. So if you have an application like this that many folks are going to need to use, it could be beneficial to do it as a GPT. GPTs are also great for folks who are maybe potentially not as excited by the technology or potentially could be overwhelmed by like the blank screen of the technology, because this is very clear. You can just look at this and know exactly what it does and how to use it. Versus if we come to a different project, it's not quite as clear. What are we using this for? What are the different ways that we can use it? Both of these can be shared. So here inside of a project, I can share this to my colleague, Aaron. And now if I share it to my colleague, Aaron, we're going to see all of each other's chats here inside of the project. That could be advantageous if, Aaron and Dustin are working on a collaborative project and they want to see each other's chats, but it could also be not helpful. So if they each want to have their own independent use of it, something like this could potentially be better. Um, but some of the core things to take away now is that for both projects and GPTs, they're both mechanisms to get more repeated outputs from, for your workflows. All right. We'll spend a few minutes here on evaluations and citations. So I'm going to show you how that works here. There we go. All right. So for the rest of these, I'm going to do some examples involving grant management. I did not know that your Department of Community Affairs is actually coming on board with ChatGPT. So if any of you are here, welcome. But I just kind of picked your agency as an example, as grant management works well for these. And so here, I'm giving it a pretty complex prompt. I'm saying, hey, you're an expert public sector grants operations analyst. Your job is to do this analysis of how other US states in the Southeast run grant management. So you don't have to read all of it. That's kind of the core thing is I want to know how are other Southeast states handling grants? And then it's giving me a big output here. But really what I want to focus on with you is looking at the citations. So if the model was thinking, you can go back and actually inspect what were the things it was thinking about? What was the conversation that the model was having with itself? Oh, okay. It was browsing state grants management portals. So it was on Georgia's, it was on Florida's, it was on North Carolina's, and 16 more. Okay, so it was busy. And then throughout this document, we can actually, when we have these citations, we can and should click on it to see, oh, is this actually a relevant citation? Is this something worthwhile? And then at the bottom of the list here, we can click on the sources and we can see all of the sources used in this output. Now, this this is great. You have a lot of sources, but are you actually going to go through all of them? Like, depends on the criticality probably and the time available. And so I wanted to show you that yes, you absolutely can look through things manually. I wanted to also show you a method of doing this in a more automated way of using the technology to review the outputs. Uh, yeah, Jamar, absolutely. So it's not like a pre-built single button, but what you could do is you could say, hey, I want you to give me a consolidated list of all the sources at the end of your prompt. And that could absolutely make it easier. Or if you want to specify a specific format, hey, I want you to do it in APA citation format. So now I took that same output and I created a project. And hopefully you're going to see a recurring theme here. I'm going to keep showing you things in a project or a GPT. And so here with the project, the whole purpose of this project is reviewing LLM outputs. So it takes the copy and paste of a model output, and then it's always going to follow the same review process. Okay, we're going to look for evidence. We are going to look for bias. We're going to look for grounding of all claims. Are the assumptions labeled? Is it relevant to the original question that was asked? And then actually, I put in some custom things like a Georgia lens. What would a major Georgia newspaper say if they were reviewing this output? Just do your best analysis. What would an average Georgia citizen, nonpartisan common sense, say looking at this output? So this is a lot of analysis, and now I don't have to keep rewriting this. So I've written on this all out once, and then I drop in one of these AI outputs here. So, all right. So I dropped in the original prompt, and I know this is a lot of scrolling, sorry. And then I dropped in the output. I guess I want to go all the way down here to show you the evaluation of it, because it can be pretty taxing to go through and evaluate all of the claims on yourself. So here I used ChatGPT to evaluate ChatGPT. Um, and it ran for 51 seconds and then it gave me a verdict of its assessment. All right, I'm going to give you a mixed review, ChatGPT. Primary risk, many of the claims aren't supported from the pasted text alone. We're pretty confident in this evaluation. The best fix is going to be to do this. And then it goes through and scores the result in all these different areas. And then, hey, what would a newspaper think in Georgia? Okay, maybe they're going to say, hey, okay, great, it worked for North Carolina, but we're going to demand official documentation. And then what I really like here is that it's going through and auditing every single claim. And then we're also going to get a better prompt. So, hey, if you were going to do this again, what would a better prompt be to reduce some of these errors or, inconsistencies that we've observed? So I also made this exact functionality as a GPT. So what I would ask you to take away from this is that it's not like, oh my gosh, the project is the only way to do this, or a GPT is the only way to do this. It's about mapping it to your functionality and your use case and what's going to be the best tool for the job. Um, so I just wanted to show you that kind of both different ways here, and then using the tool in a structured way to evaluate the tool, where you can still do that human in the loop, the human diligence, but in a structured way. And I see another one here. What hierarchy does the prompt engine follow when using project instructions? Um, let's see. In general, the project instructions are going to take hierarchy over the default instructions. So if you have set global instructions and then set contrary project instructions, the project instructions will be paid attention to as a primacy. Right. I want to go through and show a couple examples of sensitive data handling, and then I'm going to come back to the GPT and show you one more advanced one here, but I want to make sure that I share this. Um, so these are just ways that me, David OpenAI, would handle sensitive data. I'm not telling you this is your official policy. These are just ideas that you would want to, of course, check with your actual data handling, folks. Um, and these are some different tactics. I'm going to walk you through them. The whole premise here is, let's say you have a data set that you want to work with, but it has like real socials in it. These are not real socials. This is all made up. But in it has socials and date of birth and PAI, and you're like, oh, I need to work with this data set, but I can't be working with this PII. So the simplest way is, can you do essentially data preparation? Can you just delete out columns and then remarry the data back up? And so ask yourself, is there a way that you can just delete columns and still get the same result? Another way you can handle this is a concept just called tokenization, where instead of now using people's names like Avery Kim and Jordan Patel, we're going to assign them an alias. Avery Kim becomes Alpha 001. Jordan Patel becomes Alpha 002. And that way we can track that specific entity or person all the way through. And then if we need to marry back up to the real people's names, we have that on our local computer. So just a tactic for working with sensitive data is tokenization. Another way is, and this is another place I really want you to, clarify with your own data handling folks, but many agencies will say, okay, if it's an aggregate, the sensitivity of it maybe is less. So if we have every individual person with their name and date of birth, that becomes PII. But if it's just everyone in a county born in August, it's not sensitive anymore. So think about, oh, is there a way that you can aggregate the data to reduce any privacy impacts? So as an example here, we are now analyzing by bureau, by fiscal quarter versus by the exact person and maybe their exact date of birth. So think about, can you reduce the sensitivity by, yep, sample prompt of tokenization. Um, Chelsea, I might ask you to come off mute and share what you mean, because you would do the tokenization on your own computer, because the whole point I think is to not do it in ChatGPT. So like, let's say you have this sensitive data and you're not allowed to put in real people's names, hypothetically, you would maybe on your Excel file create another column or create a version of the spreadsheet, and then you would have an answer key where Avery Kim is Alpha 001, and then when you send it to ChatGPT, ChatGPT doesn't know Avery Kim. ChatGPT only gets the non-sensitive Alpha 001.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just thought there was a way to do it so that you could pull the data and include a prompt to tokenize it in the output, but that makes sense.
Yeah, yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
Yep. Another interesting way that you can go about doing that, like if you want to tokenize things within multiple spreadsheets, you can maintain a like a one spreadsheet that's kind of like your master token list or whatever. And I use ChatGPT to learn how to do this because I haven't ever taken the class in Excel. But you can use there's an excess lookup formula. And again, if you want a walkthrough on how to do it, you can just ask ChatGPT and it'll tell you how to do it. But you can use like an excess lookup tool and say, hey, define this sheet. If this name pops up, use this token, and it'll actually use that output. It's pretty great.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think the last method here is really understanding synthetic data. So let's say you're a person and you're trying to do just program analysis, and you're actually not worried about Avery Kim and Jordan Patel. You're trying to figure out, what is the impact on an average person in this county? Um, what if you just need representative data? You don't actually need the real data. So if you can describe the data, these are all the attributes of it. You can then use synthetic data. So here's an example. Here's an example of creating synthetic data. And then, um, let's see. and then it will make a data set for you. So you might say, I need people varying between these ages. I need people represented proportionally between these counties. Those could all be tactics that you might use. I'm going to skip that one. And I am going to pull up one more thing here that I think is an important takeaway. Let's see, we're going to go. All right, so I will clarify again. This is an example. This is not really from your DCA. This is just something I made because I thought it would be a good example here. Let's take a process where you might need to follow the same rubric or the same review. You're reviewing grant applications. You're reviewing applications for, property tax, forgiveness or property tax relief. You have something where you need to follow like the same procedure every single time. So a good tactic to use is think about how can I reduce the scope of the decisions that ChatGPT needs to make, and how can I provide examples for each step along the way. So here this is all fictional for grant analysis. We're saying, hey, we're going to upload a grant application review, and these are all the steps that I want you to follow. And then I want you to grade each section individually following this criteria. Include your confidence, how sure are you, and I'm essentially like writing out the logic here. So if I was going to train a new colleague of, hey, here's how we review grant applications, and so it's going to go through question by question. Did it exist? Yes. Okay, it gets a point. Did it not exist? Nope, it doesn't get a point. So if you need to review something at a higher scale, this could be a potential tactic to use. The key thing here is that I am forcing ChatGPT to work question by question and not allowing it to try and do the whole thing at once. Is this give me a score for this? I am forcing it to go through and grade each one individually. And by taking that approach, these are multiple runs here. So I wrote up a grant review here for assistance for Peach County, Georgia for water line replacement. And it's going to follow this same process every time. It's pulling out all the administrative data for the grant review. It's doing a completeness review. And then it's citing where it got all of its evidence from. Is the budget detail present? Yes, it's on page 3. Is the timeline present? Yes, it's on page 2. And then giving me my scoring out of 100. And if this is a relevant system, I should be getting pretty close to the same score every time I run it. And if not, then I need to, kind of relook at how I'm organized here. And so here I've got the same score on multiple runs. And I could tell you I had to do a bit of iteration here to get to that point, and forcing ChatGPT to work question by question. So I know this may not make immediate sense, so I'm happy to do additional sessions and kind of talk about different approaches here. But I really want to emphasize the value of projects and GPTs for this repeating work. So I'm going to pop up the survey here, and I'll love to take any live questions for the remaining time we have together.
Hey, David, we're actually going to launch a poll in a little bit. So,
okay. You want me to turn this off?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're going to launch a poll, but go for it. I definitely want to leave time for questions.
Sure. All right. Yeah. Any questions at all, folks? Jamar?
Thank you for the training today. I had a specific question around branching inside of the projects. So I've been using the projects pretty extensively throughout the pilot. And one thing I found is the more you continue to iterate inside of the same chat, the slower it gets. And so I was wondering, at what point do you recommend to branch and start a new chat if you're, constantly iterating within the same prompt?
Oh, absolutely. Great question. So I personally start new chats all the time. The minute I move between topics or move between days, I'm probably in a new chat. Um, so I would start them more often than you think you need to. And there's also an advantage there of, like, let's say you want to be able to go back and find that chat where you were talking about this one specific instance. If it's a single topic chat, it's going to be so much easier to go back and find it than if you're trying to look for a chat that has six different things in it. So start the new chats more often than you need to. And when you're actually in a normal chat like this, you mentioned the word branching. Have you actually used the branching feature?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the one I'm talking about. I was
Okay.
curious if the context is preserved after you branch, or is it like starting a brand new chat?
So it has everything from above it. It
Okay.
Yes. So if we were to go somewhere midstream, I don't have one here that's midstream. But yes, it'll take over with it everything that's above it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Do we get an answer to Ivan's question regarding updated data? Yes. Um, so currently, the best practice would be to manually change what's in that background file. And Ivan, would you mind just coming off mute, please? Let's see. Does
Yeah,
prompt on.
I was just saying, so if I changed an older document, would it be required to say this is a newer version? So it's only pulling from the newer version document?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll show this as an example. And are you talking about for a project or a GPT?
For a project, if I had
Okay.
uploaded a document
Yep.
and then let's say something changed in the latest project meeting to where numbers changed or something changed, how
Hmm.
would it know just to go off of the newest document?
Yeah. So if you have multiple documents in here, so I'm going to upload these three documents, then you have two options. One, the simplest would be just to delete the old versions. But if it would be valuable to you to have previous versions, I would probably write some logic into the project settings of saying, look, I'm going to periodically add additional new files. Each new file will have a date associated in the title. I want you to use the latest one unless there's specific value in going backwards. Like I ask you for some kind of a comparison. And Dwayne, which project were you most interested in? I'll happily share it.
It was earlier, you were within the project and you were giving it some, I guess, some detailed instructions around do's and don't right here, like the output evaluation tool.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
thanks.
Yep, absolutely. Um, and then I'll drop in the guardrails one as well. And so I'll reinforce these are not like magical, like the only ones to use. These are just examples of ways that you can be thinking about using projects. Kind of the thing I'll leave you with here is kind of cement in your mind. If you find yourself doing the same thing multiple times and having to reestablish context and reprompt and getting frustrated of like, why am I having to spend all this time after the fact reformatting it? A project or a GPT with examples of what you mean is the way to go. All right. And I'll turn it back to you all. Onisha, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. And thank you for everybody that has joined us today. Before you all leave this call, I'm going to launch this poll right now. If you don't mind, take a moment to do this quick 6-question poll. It is anonymous and the results will be used internally for improvement. You guys know that this is a pilot and we definitely want to make sure we are learning how to best serve you along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. Everyone should be able to see it. It is anonymous, like I said, and also it should be super quick. So if you can please take that poll, it should take less than a few minutes. Also, as you're doing that, be sure to hop on Civic Roundtable. That is our community space. And you can add your questions there and share what you've been trying. Keep the conversation going so that others can continue to learn alongside you. And finally, today's recording is going to be shared with all the registrants in the coming days. So keep an eye out in your inbox, and it'll be on Civic Roundtable as well. So I'm going to hush up for a second so you guys can complete that poll. If you cannot see it, just let me know, but everybody should be able to see it up on their screen. And the results of this poll will not be shared in this call.
Right.
And I
Thank you all. I
definitely
got to run.
appreciate y'all. Yes, thank you so much, David.
Thanks, David.
You're welcome. I have a question real quick while we're waiting. Is this session going to be like an exhaustive session that we will actually learn more in-depth details to? Because it went so fast. I'm like, oh my God, I need all of this information, but I can't like ask all the questions at one time when he was going through it. So will there be an exhausted form of this training?
I would say continue to two things. One, give us that in the poll. There's no open-ended questions, but definitely any specific area of this training that you feel like you want us to go more in depth on. When we post that recording, you can kind of rewatch some of it. But then also, I would say post those questions and comments in Civic Roundtable, or just shoot them over to ai@gta.ga.gov or directly to Dustin. And we can make sure that as we continue to build our additional training content, we can go deeper. Also, open office hours. I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention our open office hours. That's a perfect place for us to be able to go even deeper or slow down in certain areas that were covered today. So please make sure you jump on open office hours, bring your questions, bring anything that's very specific to the way you use ChatGPT in your workflow. And that is a way we can cover some of that. And that's what those open office hours are for. Dustin, when is the next one? Is it next week?
Be next Thursday. Yeah, it's so it's every other Thursday, and then when we have these types of trainings, we schedule them on the other Thursdays.
Is that helpful? All right.
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that.
You're so welcome. Absolutely. Well, we're going to give anybody who hasn't taken the poll a few more minutes to do that. Other than that, if you've already taken the poll and you have all your questions answered, or you have some more questions that might have come up, again, feel free to shoot them to us through our email, ai@gta.ga.gov, or shoot them over to Dustin, Veronica, Aaron, or I, and we'll make sure that we get back with you. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
I just want to hang on until everybody drops to make sure that the poll is still available. Hi, everyone. All right, I'll go ahead and close the poll, assuming everyone that's still here has taken it, and we can end the call probably. Let me close it. Hold on one second. All right, poll is closed. All right, thanks, everyone.